John here, and today kicking off the Jaws reviews. Now, a couple of days ago or so, I was doing a live commentary of Jaws, and the stream decided to crap out in the last 15 minutes. I was about to finish the commentary, and then the stream just stopped. So I took down the stream because I knew it would cut off at the end. So I figured, just review the films and, maybe we can do like a live rant commentary on Jaws 4, just to have some fun with that because it's fun to make fun of that movie. But today, talking about and discussing the one that started it all, and that's Jaws. Definitely classic, and what more can you say about this film that hasn't been said? For me, it has to be in my top 10 favorite films, maybe the top 5, because, that's how much I love this film. I love these characters. I love the score. I love the idea. It's just, the universal idea. And they talk about this in the documentary, The Shark is Still Working, which is on this Blu-ray. I've seen it before, and I was rewatching it again last night, some of the documentary. And, you see how the film opens up, with the girl that goes out into the water. And you don't know what's below the waterline. Like you don't know what is lurking, you know, down at the bottom, where you can't see. And just that universal idea, you know, of course you have the novel, you can mention that by Peter Benchley, which I do have. I actually have the novelizations for Jaws and Jaws 2. So I know it's based on the novel. But, that idea of, you don't know what's beneath the surface. You don't know what's lurking down below and waiting, and just that scary thought. I can imagine, seeing this back in 1975 and because of this film's impact, and the impression this film made, people were scared of the water. And yeah, and you take a simple idea and you make it into a film like this, and it worked well. And when you talk about Steven Spielberg, I mean, everything was against Spielberg. I mean, it was over budget, over scheduled, and they definitely took a chance. It was a risk. And I mean, you could talk about the mechanical shark, that would malfunction, break down the minute it hits the water because they filmed in real ocean. So the mechanical shark would break down, the circuitry and the mechanics, would break down, and they would have to get it back working again. So, and, you could talk about the plot and the story, which we all know about. I mean, you have these characters. You have Chief Brody, who's played by Roy Scheider, great actor. He was in the French Connection. He was in All That Jazz, which I haven't seen, but I've heard of that film. He was in Blue Thunder. That's a good movie. 2010, I've heard about, but I haven't seen. Sequest, he was in that. He was in The Punisher with Thomas Jane. And I wish the guy was still around. He's such a great actor, underrated actor that I enjoyed watching. You have Richard Dreyfuss as the character of Matt Hooper. Another great actor. I mean, he would be in Close Encounters soon after this film. He would be in What About Bob and Stakeout, which is a great movie. A lot of great movies, great actor with the great filmography. Robert Shaw, who plays the character of Quint. I mean, one of the memorable aspects of the film, and, his speech later on about the USS Indianapolis. And, Robert Shaw definitely, you can almost say, stole the show. Like in the second, because it's a 2-hour film, but it doesn't feel 2 hours. I mean, the first hour is more about the build-up and the suspense, these characters. Then by the second hour, it's an adventure. It's a hunt for the shark, with these 3 characters. And Robert Shaw, I mean, he's definitely one of the aspects of the film that make it stand out. And before this, I know he was in From Russia with Love as, I forgot the character's name, but he was the hitman. And then like after this, like 2 or 3 years after this film, he passed away, early age. which is unfortunate. But, you also have Lorraine Gary as Brody's wife in the film. You have, you know, Murray Hamilton as the mayor, who doesn't want to believe, that there's a shark in the beaches. He wants to keep the beaches open. And that's one of the things about, this film right here, which I enjoy Jaws too, but it's like, Mayor, did you not remember the events from before? Why is it that you're having a hard time, accepting that there could be another shark in your waters? And you've been through this film, and you want to deny and pretend there's not a shark. Like, don't you remember the events of the first movie? It's just one of those things. I still like Jaws 2 a lot, but, the mayor character, great acting from Murray Hamilton, and some other supporting actors like the character of, like the Deputy Hendricks character, played by Jeffrey Kramer, I believe. So even a good supporting cast. And, great score by John Williams, a memorable, iconic score. And, all you have to do is play those little notes, and people who haven't seen the film know what that is. And that's the long-lasting impact of the score. And it's sad that, there's not a lot of that nowadays. You don't have great scores, like, from this film and other John Williams films like, Superman the movie and Jurassic Park. You don't have iconic scores as much as you used to. And I don't know why we've gotten away from, developing iconic themes for films and memorable scores. Like nowadays, it's a lot of generic, it's a lot of the same generic score. Like it could be serviceable, but 9 times out of 10, it's generic. Drum beats. They don't put a lot of emphasis on score as much as they used to, and I don't know why. It's like they rather put more emphasis on, trying to convey this message, and let's try to gain some brownie points, by appeasing group types and all that stuff. And I can go more into that, but I just don't know why. That's one of those things that it could be a whole topic by itself. What happened to great scores, which I know Rembrandt for Life, Matt, another great guy up here, he did a whole topic about that. Check out that video. But yeah, you don't have iconic themes and scores like you used to. And I don't know if filmmakers think that's cheesy, but to me, that helps the film. It definitely helps the film stand out. It gives the film its soul. 45 years later, we still remember the theme for this film. We still remember, the theme for Superman the movie and Jurassic Park. And it's not just with John Williams. There's other great composers out there, that would come later. And you also have ones at the time like Jerry Goldsmith and James Horner. Rest in peace. So, great score. And it's well directed, and I was trying to think what else I can mention here, because again, I know it's one of these films that there's a lot that's been said that, what else can you really add? What else can you add to, this movie? And as far as like the novel, I've only read the first few chapters, so maybe it's one of those things I have to start back over. I don't know. I forgot how much different, between like the novel and this film, what was changed. I know Hooper was one that got killed in the end. It wasn't Quint. So I know that's one change they made, but I think, it was a good change. It's such a memorable death. And then, and also too, and I'm glad I just thought of this, but when you talk about great characters in this movie, The thing is, these were blue collar types. And that's another thing that I don't know why we've gotten away from, those types of characters. The blue collar types. Chief Brody. He's the chief. You have Matt Hooper, his character. You have Robert Shaw, who's a fisherman. And you just don't have that blue collar type of characters anymore. I mean, you had this movie, these characters. You can mention Alien. You can mention Tremors. The characters of Val and Earl. Like the hardworking types. And I don't know why filmmakers now, have gotten away from that. Like, people would think, I don't know if they feel in their minds that people don't care about these type of characters anymore. Like nowadays, it's a bunch of GQ types. Like everyone's got to look like they were on the front of GQ magazine, or it's got to be an A-lister. I mean, even before this, Richard Dreyfuss did American Graffiti. He wasn't really, known at the time. He did Close Encounters after this, but, I just wish that we could see those types of characters again. And I think, the blue collar types are the ones that we relate to the most. They're relatable characters. And, we can invest more into their journey. We can invest more into their obstacles and to their, story. I think that's another thing that, that maybe doesn't get talked about as much. Like with this film, we can mention great characters. Well, they're great characters, but maybe that's another reason why this film has lasted and still gets talked about, is because these are characters that we can relate to, when you look at their occupation. And again, that just kind of goes back to, blue collar types. And, I feel that, those characters now we could use more. Why don't they go back to blue collar characters? And it doesn't matter. It could be man or woman. I would like to see blue collar types, again in films. And I think it's a relatable human element, or I don't know how you would word that, but it's relatable. That's pretty much what I'm trying to say. It's a relatable aspect to these characters. And I know people say, well, you don't see the shark as much throughout the film, but I say to that, and that's another thing that filmmakers, and I know I keep bringing that up, that I'm just kind of, maybe I'm just speaking out loud here or talking in the clouds, but, you don't see the shark much, but you have great characters that complement the build-up, that complement the suspense, that complement the shark not being there as much. And films now, you can have great story and you can have build-up, but one thing that they don't mention or they leave out is you have to have great characters that complement the lack, or, not showing the creature as much, or, I was trying to think of another word, but you have the characters of Chief Brody, you have the characters of Hooper, you have the character of Quint. These are characters that I've cared about. Yeah, you don't see the shark as much in this film. And, yeah, you could say about the second hour, you see a little bit more of the shark, but I'm fine with that because I have great characters that complement the build-up, that help the suspense, that, the tension and the suspense of the first hour, where you had like 3 victims, but there was still a mystery to the shark. Kind of like, with Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween, the original. You look at the shape, he's in the shadows, and you don't really see him as much, but you have good performances by Jamie Lee Curtis and Donald Pleasance. And that's, that would come a couple of years later. But again, if you have great characters, that we can relate to, that we can invest in their journey, invest in the story, and great acting. That's another thing too. Quality acting, then I can help the build up. And again, people, filmmakers now, that's another thing that they tend to forget is, you could talk about build up all day. You could talk about this and that. Oh, we got to move the story, but you need great characters too. You need great acting, not just, you don't need monotone acting. You don't need monotone, characters. You need characters that can stand out, characters that can make an impression. And these characters made an impression. So, yeah, I know maybe I'm kind of getting off track here of talking about the film, but I think it's important. It's imperative, to mention some of these things because, yeah, I if people are not a fan of this film, that's fine. I'm not saying this is an end all be all, but I think to me it stands as a great template to a great movie. That if you have great characters, if you have, build up, that, the great characters in this film complement the build up, and great direction, great writing, and simple story, quality acting, great score, all these things that I mentioned, they can definitely make the film. And 45 years later, people still, people wonder why we still talk about this movie because of all those elements I mentioned, and again, I'm not saying this is the end all be all, but it's one of these films, and it definitely speaks to of the time, in the 70s, where even back then they took more risk, and that's something now that, the Hollywood machine doesn't do as much. They don't take the risk. It's about taking the safe route, the safe direction of, reboots and remakes and sequels and constant continuations. But back then they took more risk, and, it was a gamble. And it's films like this that show that, hey, if you put the hard work into something, if you put the hard work into something, if you really want it, it can pay off in the end. That might sound cliche, but it worked for Steven Spielberg. I mean, after this, he just skyrocketed from this movie. Went on to have a great career. So, yeah, again, maybe I didn't talk as much about the film, but who hasn't seen Jaws? That's the thing here. I think it's more about, highlighting the important aspects of a film and what makes the film work. And those aspects, can still apply today. That again, this definitely serves as a great template of how to make a great movie, with great characters, great score, suspense, build up, adventure, and all those things mentioned. Great performances. And so yeah, that's I can say again, definitely in my top 5 of favorite films. It's just one of those films that I can obsess over. But yeah, I'll just end it here. But yeah, that's my long-winded review of Jaws. But as far as nitpicks, I don't have a lot of nitpicks. But I was going to mention one thing, but I'll probably save that for Jaws 2 when I review that. But thank you for watching my review of Jaws, my review discussion. But that's my review of Jaws. Thank you for watching, and have a good day.